The envelope was cream-colored, heavy stock, the kind that rich people use when they want you to know something important is coming. I turned it over in my hands, studying the return address. Whitmore and Associates, estate planning attorneys. Portland, Oregon. My hands were stained with wood varnish from refinishing Mrs. Chen's porch railings. 64 years old, and I was still working with my hands. Not the hands of the architect I'd once been. The hands of a man who'd learned to sand, paint, and patch his way through life, one odd job at a time. I didn't recognize the firm's name. Didn't know anyone in Portland who'd leave me anything worth putting in an envelope this expensive. Inside was a single sheet of paper, formal, typed, "Dear Mr. Hayes, we regret to inform you of the passing of Laura Catherine Hayes on November 3rd. As executor of her estate, we request your presence at the reading of her will on November 18th at 2 p.m. Given the nature of the bequest and your named status in the will, your attendance is required. The reading will take place at our Portland office. Please confirm your attendance at your earliest convenience. Laura." I hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in 18 years. Not since the divorce papers arrived at the county jail where I was serving the second year of my sentence. My ex-wife was dead. I should have felt something. Grief, maybe. Closure. Something. Instead, I felt the same hollow ache I'd carried since the day I walked into that courtroom and pled guilty to crimes I didn't commit. The phone rang before I could process the letter. Unknown number. "Is this William Hayes?" A woman's voice. Professional. Clipped. Speaking. "This is Jennifer Whitmore from Whitmore and Associates. I'm calling to confirm you received our letter regarding Laura Hayes' estate. Just opened it. Will you be able to attend the reading?" I looked around my small apartment. One bedroom. Kitchen with appliances from 1,987. The couch I'd bought used from Goodwill when I got out of prison. This was my life now. A 500-square-foot statement of how far I'd fallen. Why would I be in Laura's will? The question came out rougher than I intended. We haven't spoken in almost 2 decades. There was a pause. I could hear papers shuffling on her end. "I'm not at liberty to discuss the contents of the will over the phone, Mr. Hayes. I can tell you that your presence is specifically requested. There are others who will be present as well." My stomach dropped. "My son, Derek Hayes, will be attending." Yes, of course he would be. Derek was Laura's golden child, the one she'd raised after I went away, the one who'd built a successful career in finance, probably funded by Laura's pharmaceutical fortune, the son who hadn't spoken to me since he was 10 years old. "Mr. Hayes? I'll be there." I hung up before she could say anything else. The apartment suddenly felt smaller. I walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot where my 15-year-old pickup truck sat rusting in the November rain. Portland was 8 hours north. I'd have to take 2 days off work. Lose 2 days of pay I couldn't afford to lose. Drive up there just to watch my ex-wife's lawyers divide up a fortune that had been built on lies. But Derek would be there. I hadn't seen my son in 18 years. Hadn't heard his voice since that last phone call when he was 12, when he'd screamed at me that I'd ruined everything, that I wasn't his father anymore, that he never wanted to see me again. I'd kept every letter I'd sent him, 43 birthday cards, 43 Christmas cards, all returned unopened, all marked return to sender in handwriting that got more mature as the years passed, but never less angry. The coffee maker beeped in the kitchen. The same cheap Mr. Coffee I'd bought at Target when I got out. Everything in my life was the cheapest version of what it could be. I poured a cup, black. I'd learned to like it that way in prison. The letter sat on the counter, cream-colored perfection mocking my stained hands. Laura was dead, and somehow, even from the grave, she was pulling me back into a past I'd spent 18 years trying to forget. I picked up my phone, scrolled to a contact I hadn't called in 5 years. Hayes. The voice was gruff, familiar. "Jerry." "It's William." "Will?" "Jesus, I thought you'd fallen off the planet." Jerry had been my cellmate during the first year. Got out 6 months before I did. We'd kept in touch sporadically, the way ex-cons do when they're both trying to pretend prison never happened. "I need a favor. You still in Portland?" "Yeah? Why?" "I have to be there. November 18th. Need a place to crash for a night." Sure, man. What's going on? I looked at the letter again. My ex-wife died. Left me something in her will, apparently. Jerry whistled. The one who... Yeah, that one. Damn. Your kid gonna be there? Yeah. There was a long pause. Jerry knew the whole story. Knew what it had cost me. You sure you want to do this, Will? Was I? No. But Derek would be there. And maybe, just maybe, after all these years, I'd get to see the man my son had become. Even if he hated me, even if he never wanted to speak to me, I just wanted to see him one more time. I have to. All right. Text me when you're close. I'll leave the key under the mat. I hung up and stared at the letter. November 18th, 2 weeks away. I had 2 weeks to prepare myself to face the son who thought I was a criminal. The son who'd grown up believing his father had embezzled $2 million from his own firm, had destroyed his mother's happiness, had torn their family apart for greed. The son who didn't know the truth. And if Laura's will was anything like Laura herself, the truth was probably going to stay buried right alongside her. I finished my coffee and went back to work. Mrs. Chen's porch railings weren't going to sand themselves. The Whitmore & Associates building was all glass and steel, modern, expensive, the kind of place that charged $500 an hour just to answer your phone call. I'd worn my only suit, navy blue, bought it at Men's Warehouse for my sister's funeral 3 years ago. It still fit, mostly, though the shoulders were a little tight from the manual labor I'd been doing. The receptionist gave me a look that said she knew exactly what I was. Poor, out of place. Probably here because I was in the will, not because I belonged. Mr. Hayes, for the 2 p.m. reading. She checked her computer. Conference room B, 3rd floor. Elevators to your right. I rode up alone, watched the floors tick by, smoothed down my tie for the 5th time. The conference room had a view of the city, floor-to-ceiling windows. A mahogany table that probably cost more than I'd made in the last 5 years. And sitting at that table, back straight, wearing a suit that actually fit, was my son. Derek had Laura's eyes, sharp, calculating. The same eyes that had looked at me across a courtroom and hadn't shed a single tear when the judge sentenced me to 5 years. He looked up when I walked in. Those eyes went cold. What are you doing here? The words hit like a fist. Direct. Angry. I was invited. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Same as you. Invited. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mom's dead less than 3 weeks, and you show up looking for a handout. That's perfect. That's exactly who you are. I wanted to defend myself. Wanted to tell him I didn't want anything from Laura. Wanted to explain everything. But 18 years of silence had taught me that Derek didn't want explanations. He wanted a villain, and I'd been cast in that role before he hit puberty. I sat down at the opposite end of the table, as far from him as possible. The door opened, and Jennifer Whitmore walked in, late 40s. Perfectly styled hair, the kind of confidence that comes from winning arguments for a living. Mr. Hayes, thank you for coming. She nodded to me, then to Derek. Both of you. She set a leather portfolio on the table, opened it with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this is likely difficult for both of you. Laura was very specific about her wishes, and she wanted both of you present for this reading. Derek's jaw tightened. Can we just get this over with? Jennifer pulled out a thick document. Laura's last will and testament. The bulk of Laura's estate consists of her holdings in Meridian Pharmaceuticals, real estate properties, and various investments. The total estimated value is approximately $385 million. I felt the air leave my lungs. $385 million. Laura had been comfortable when we divorced. Successful. But this was a fortune beyond anything I'd imagined. Derek didn't even blink. He'd probably known. Had probably watched his mother build this empire over the years. Had probably benefited from it every step of the way. Jennifer continued reading. To my son, Derek Michael Hayes, I leave my shares in Meridian Pharmaceuticals, valued at approximately $125 million, along with the property at 2847 Hawthorne Boulevard and all furnishings therein. Derek nodded, accepting his inheritance like it was expected, like it was deserved. To my former husband, William Robert Hayes. I looked up sharply. Derek's head snapped toward the lawyer, his expression shifting from cold acceptance to pure fury. What? Jennifer's voice remained steady. Professional. To my former husband, William Robert Hayes, I leave the remainder of my estate, including all liquid assets, investment portfolios, and the property at Riverside Manor, along with this letter, to be read aloud in his presence. The silence in the room was deafening. Derek shot to his feet. That's impossible. She wouldn't. He doesn't deserve a single penny of her money. He destroyed her life. He went to prison for stealing from his own firm. He's a criminal. Mr. Hayes, please sit down. No. Derek's voice shook with rage. I don't know what kind of game this is, but there's no way my mother would leave anything to him. She hated him. We both did. Jennifer's expression didn't change. Your mother was of sound mind when she drafted this will 6 months ago. I witnessed it myself. And she was very clear that she wanted Mr. Hayes to receive the majority of her estate. Why? The word came out like an accusation. Why would she do that? The letter will explain. Jennifer pulled out another cream-colored envelope, unsealed it. Laura requested that I read this aloud. In both your presence. Derek looked at me like I'd orchestrated this somehow. Like I'd manipulated Laura from beyond the grave. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what was happening. $260 million. Laura had left me $260 million. The woman who'd divorced me while I was in prison. Who'd built a pharmaceutical empire while I learned how to fix leaky faucets. Who'd raised our son to hate me. Jennifer began reading. To William. If you're hearing this, I'm gone. And it's probably a relief for you to know I can't hurt you anymore. But before you walk away from this reading, before Derek says something he'll regret, I need you both to know the truth. The truth I've carried for 18 years. The truth that built my fortune and destroyed your life. My hands gripped the edge of the table. Derek, your father is not a criminal. William never embezzled a single dollar from Hayes and Morrison Architecture. He never stole from anyone. Everything they accused him of, everything he went to prison for, everything you've hated him for, it was me. Derek's face went white. I was the one who moved funds from the firm's accounts. I was the one who created the false invoices, the fake vendors. I needed capital to start Meridian Pharmaceuticals. The banks wouldn't loan to me. I had a 10-year plan, a strategy, investors ready to commit once I had seed money. I took $2.3 million from the firm over the course of 8 months. I was going to pay it back. I swear I was going to pay it back. My vision blurred. Hearing her admit it, even now, even after all these years. But the auditors found the discrepancies. They traced everything. The FBI got involved. And when they started asking questions, when they started building their case, your father did something I'll never understand. He confessed. I remembered that day, coming home to find Laura at the kitchen table, sobbing. The FBI had called her in for questioning. They had evidence. They had paper trails. They were going to arrest her. Derek was 10 years old. He just made the travel soccer team. He was excited about middle school. His whole life was ahead of him. And Laura looked at me with those sharp eyes and said, "What am I going to do?" I'd made the decision in about 30 seconds. William told me to let him take the blame. Said he was a partner in the firm anyway, that it would make sense he'd have access. Said his career was already established, but mine was just starting. Said Derek needed a mother more than a father, that I could give him opportunities he couldn't. That part was true. I'd been a mid-level architect, successful enough, but not remarkable. Laura's pharmaceutical research was groundbreaking. She had patents pending. Investors interested. If she went to prison, all of that died. If I went to prison, Derek still had a mother, still had a future. I begged him not to do it. I really did. But Will has always been stubborn. He called his lawyer, confessed to everything, made up a story about gambling debts and bad investments, made it so airtight that the FBI didn't even question it. Derek's hands were shaking. He was staring at the table, at nothing, his entire world being rewritten with every word Jennifer read. He went to prison. 5 years. Lost his architecture license. Lost everything. And I built Meridian on the capital I'd stolen from his firm. I built my fortune on your father's sacrifice. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to see Derek's face. When he got out, I couldn't face him. Every time I looked at him, I saw what I'd cost him, what I'd taken. So I did the cruelest thing I could do. I divorced him, told myself it would set him free. But really, I just couldn't live with my guilt. The room was so quiet I could hear the traffic outside, the hum of the building's ventilation system. I let Derek believe his father was a criminal. Let him hate Will. Let him send back those birthday cards, those Christmas cards. I got every single one of them, Derek. Will sent them to our address. I made sure you never saw them. Derek made a sound. Small, broken. I am a coward. I was a coward then, and I'm a coward now because I can't even tell you this to your face. But Will deserves this money. He deserves every penny of the fortune I built on his sacrifice. And Derek, you deserve to know that your father is the most honorable man I've ever known. Everything good in my life came at the cost of destroying his. Jennifer's voice wavered slightly. There's more. William, I know you won't want this money. I know you'll probably try to refuse it. But please, take it. Use it. Live the life you should have had. And Derek, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Your father loves you more than you'll ever know. He gave up everything for you. Please don't let my mistakes cost you a relationship with him anymore. The letter ended. Jennifer set it down carefully. That's all she wrote. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 18 years. 18 years of silence. Of shame. Of watching my son grow up in newspaper clippings and social media posts I found by searching his name late at night. 18 years of carrying a secret that Laura had just broadcast from beyond the grave. Derek stood up slowly. His face was pale. His hands were gripping the back of his chair so hard his knuckles had gone white. Is it true? The question was directed at me. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. He was 28 now. Had my jawline. My hands. But those eyes, those were all Laura's. Yes. You went to prison for something she did. Yes. For 5 years. Yes. And you never told me. She was your mother, Derek. You needed her. You didn't need a father with a criminal record. His face crumpled. Just for a second. Then he rebuilt it, brick by brick, the way people do when they're trying not to fall apart in front of strangers. I have to go. He grabbed his coat, headed for the door. Derek. He didn't turn around. I can't. Not right now. I can't. The door closed behind him with a soft click. I sat there, staring at my hands. The same hands that had signed a false confession. The same hands that had held Derek when he was a baby. The same hands that had spent 18 years doing odd jobs because no architecture firm would hire an ex-con. Jennifer began gathering her papers. I'll need you to sign some documents, Mr. Hayes. The transfer of assets will take several weeks, but I don't want it. She paused. Excuse me? The money. I don't want it, Mr. Hayes. It's $260 million. You can't simply refuse. Put it in a trust for Derek. He's her son. It should be his. Jennifer sat down again, studied me with the same appraising look the receptionist had given me downstairs. Laura knew you'd say that. She included a clause. If you refuse the inheritance, it goes to CHARESA, the Juvenile Justice Reform Foundation. Specifically, Derek won't see a penny of it. Of course she did. Laura had always been 3 steps ahead. Even now. Mr. Hayes, take the money. You earned it. God knows you earned it. I thought about my apartment, my 15-year-old truck, the way Mrs. Chen's eyes always held pity when she paid me for odd jobs. I thought about the last 18 years, and I thought about Derek's face when he'd asked if it was true. I'll need some time. Of course. Take all the time you need. But she was already placing papers in front of me, already highlighting where I needed to sign, already moving forward because that's what lawyers do. They move forward. I signed where she indicated. My signature looked shaky, old. When I walked out of that conference room, I was worth $260 million. I felt exactly the same. I didn't hear from Derek for 6 days. I'd driven back to California in a daze, slept in my apartment, went to work, sanded Mrs. Chen's railings, fixed a leaking pipe for the Johnsons. Everything normal, everything the same. Except at night, when I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my phone on the nightstand, waiting for a call that I knew probably wouldn't come. On the 7th day, my phone rang. Unknown number. Portland area code. Hello? It's me. Derek's voice. I hadn't heard it in so long it took me a second to place it. Derek, I need to know everything. Not the version Mom told. Your version. What really happened? I sat down on my couch. The one from Goodwill. Okay. Why did you do it? You were 10 years old, Derek. You had your whole life ahead of you. Your mother's research was going to change medicine. She had investors ready. If she went to prison, all of that died. And you'd have lost your mother. So you let me think you were a thief. Better than the truth. Better than knowing your mother was. He was quiet for a long time. I could hear traffic in the background. He was outside somewhere. I sent back your birthday cards. I know. Every single one. I know. Why did you keep sending them? My throat tightened. Because you were my son. You are my son. That doesn't change because you hate me. I heard him take a shaky breath. I called you a criminal. To your face. At the reading. You didn't know. I should have known. I should have. His voice broke. I'm sorry. God. I'm so sorry. Derek. No. Let me say this. Please. Another breath. You gave up everything for me. Your career. Your freedom. 18 years of your life. And I spent all of it hating you. Every achievement I had. Every success. I thought about how glad I was that you weren't there to see it. How glad I was that I'd made it without you. I closed my eyes. And now I find out that everything I have, everything I am, is because you destroyed your life to save Mom's. To save mine. You would have been fine, Derek. You're smart, driven. You would have succeeded no matter what. That's not the point. His voice was raw. The point is that I should have had you there. I should have had my father at my high school graduation, at my college graduation. When I got my first job, He stopped, started again. I got engaged last month. The words hit me like a physical blow. Congratulations. Her name is Sophie. She's a teacher. Elementary school. She's amazing. I'm happy for you. I want you to meet her. I opened my eyes. Derek, you don't have to. I want you to meet her. I want you to walk me down the aisle, if you'll do it. I want my dad there. The tears came before I could stop them. Silent. 18 years of grief spilling out in my empty apartment. I'd be honored. We talked for 3 hours. He told me about his life, his job in investment banking, how he'd met Sophie at a coffee shop when she'd accidentally taken his order, how he'd proposed on a beach in Hawaii. I told him about prison, about learning carpentry from my cellmate, about the first day I got out and realized I had nowhere to go, about the slow process of rebuilding a life from nothing. He cried. I cried. And when we finally hung up, I felt lighter than I had in 18 years. The wedding was in June. I used some of Laura's money to buy a suit. A real one. Custom fitted. The tailor raised his eyebrows when I told him to spare no expense. Derek had insisted. Dad, you're worth $250 million. Buy the suit. It still felt surreal. The money, the accounts, the property deed to Riverside Manor that had arrived in the mail. I'd given most of it to charities, set up college funds, donated to the Juvenile Justice Reform Foundation that Laura had threatened me with. But I'd kept enough to stop doing odd jobs, enough to move into a better apartment, enough to take Derek and Sophie out to dinner when they'd flown down to visit, enough to feel human again. The wedding was at a vineyard in Napa Valley, Sophie's choice, elegant, intimate, about 100 guests. I stood in the dressing room, adjusting my tie. The same hands that had been stained with wood varnish, now adorned with a watch Derek had given me. So, you don't have an excuse to be late, he'd said, grinning. There was a knock on the door. Dad, you ready? I opened it. Derek stood there in his tuxedo, looking like the man I'd always hoped he'd become. Confident, happy, kind. You look good, son. You too. He straightened my tie, a small gesture. Intimate, the kind of thing fathers and sons do. I have something for you. He pulled out an envelope, cream-colored, heavy stock. My stomach twisted. "It's not what you think." He smiled. "Open it." Inside was a single photograph, yellowed with age. Me and Derek. He couldn't have been more than 5. We were at a park. He was sitting on my shoulders, laughing, his small hands tangled in my hair. I found it in Mom's things when we were cleaning out her house. She kept it, all these years. I stared at the photo. I remembered that day. We'd gone to the park after I'd finished a big project. Derek had wanted to feed the ducks. Laura had taken the picture. "She loved you, you know," Derek said quietly, in her own broken way. "She just couldn't forgive herself." "I know." He took the photo back, carefully slipped it back into the envelope. "I had it copied. One for you, one for me. So we remember." "Remember what?" "That we get second chances. That we're more than the worst things we've done. That family is..." His voice caught. "That family is worth fighting for." I pulled him into a hug. "My son. Taller than me now. Stronger. But still my son. Thank you for fighting for us," he whispered. "Always." The wedding coordinator knocked. 5 minutes, Mr. Hayes. Derek pulled back, wiped his eyes. "Ready to give me away?" "I'm not giving you away. I just got you back." He laughed. "You know what I mean." We walked to the vineyard's main hall. Classical music played. Guests stood. Sophie waited at the end of the aisle in a dress that made her look like she'd stepped out of a fairy tale. Derek took my arm. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I love you." "I love you too, son." We walked down the aisle together, father and son, the way it should have been all along. And when I placed Derek's hand in Sophie's, when I stepped back and watched them exchange vows, I thought about Laura, about the letter she'd left, about the money she'd given me not because I deserved it, but because she couldn't give me back the 18 years she'd taken. I thought about the birthday cards, the Christmas cards, every letter returned, unopened. I thought about the morning I'd opened that cream-colored envelope and discovered my ex-wife was dead. And I thought about second chances. Sophie's father spoke about love, about commitment, about choosing each other every day. Derek and Sophie exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife. And when Derek kissed his bride, when everyone stood and applauded, I clapped until my hands hurt. Because this moment, this joy, this future stretching out in front of my son, this was what I'd given up everything for. And I'd do it again. Every single time. After the ceremony, after the photos and the receiving line and the first dance, Derek found me sitting at a table, watching the celebration. He sat down next to me, loosened his tie. "Thank you for being here. Wouldn't miss it. Sophie wants to know if you'll come to Sunday dinners. We're thinking of making it a regular thing. I'd like that." He looked at me. Really looked at me. "We lost 18 years, Dad. I know. I want to make up for it." "Derek, you don't have to." "I want to." He squeezed my shoulder. "I want to know you, the real you, not the version I created in my head, not the criminal I thought you were. You, my dad." I couldn't speak, could only nod. Sophie appeared, radiant, laughing. "There you two are. Come on, they're cutting the cake." Derek stood, offered me his hand, pulled me to my feet. And as I followed my son and his new wife into the crowd of celebrating guests, I realized something. I'd spent 18 years believing I'd lost everything. But I'd been wrong. I'd lost time, I'd lost freedom, I'd lost my career. But I'd never lost the thing that mattered most. I'd never lost my son. I'd just been waiting for him to find his way back to me. And now that we had a future stretching out in front of us filled with Sunday dinners and grandchildren, and all the small moments that make up a life, now everything Laura's money could never buy was finally mine. The music played. People danced. The sun set over the vineyard in shades of gold and crimson. And for the first time in 18 years, I was exactly where I belonged. Home.